Good morning. Today is section 55. The date is June 1831 in Kirtland, Ohio, for William Phelps. And the prominent doctrine is, or theme is, W. Phelps and school books. So in 1831, William Wines Phelps, his middle name was Wines, I think that's hilarious, not yet a member of the church, arrived in Kirtland with his family. He had previously purchased a Book of Mormon from Parley and was convinced of its truth. He asked Joseph what the will of the Lord was for him. Joseph inquired, and this revelation was given. Let's see. So, a little bit about W. Phelps. He brought great talents to the Latter-day Saints. In Missouri, he founded a newspaper, the Evening and Morning Star. He also composed many of our hymns, including Praise to the Man and the Spirit of God. He was appointed to the Missouri State Presidency. In 1838, he was excommunicated, and then in 1840, he was back in full fellowship. And then in 1847, he was excommunicated again. And then in 1849, he was back in full fellowship. And then he died in 1872 in full fellowship in Salt Lake City. Just some main themes. W. Phelps was called to assist Oliver Cowdery in writing, editing, and publishing. As saints, we need books, scriptures, pamphlets, and the teachings of leaders. As part of his calling, Phelps arranged for the church's first printing press to be brought to Independence, Missouri. This call was important to the church, and the Lord made sure that Phelps would have the necessary resources to complete his calling. Likewise, the Lord prepares things so that we can fulfill our calling. W. Phelps was familiar with printing and publishing, talents that were used to further the kingdom. Our talents can also be used to further the kingdom of God. So just more of that law of consecration, using our time and our talents. Alright, so not a whole lot in the Ludlow, but there is a hilarious quote from a Levi Edgar Young. Not quite sure who that is. I'm wondering if it's one of Brigham Young's sons, grandsons, something of that nature. I don't know. I could look it up, but I'm using my phone. Anyways, this quote is concerning verses 1 through 5, where doing the work of printing and selecting and writing books for schools. He says, Levi Edgar Young, the Latter-day Saints have always been far in advance of the majority of their neighbors in regard to education of their children. Even in the earliest days, they had schools that made real men and women, not schools that produce weaklings and sycophants. The old schools made for character and real worth. They took the raw material and molded it into beings of personality and culture. I thought that was pretty funny. But I think we can see how some schools are producing weaklings and sycophants. Definitely universities. And then John A. Woodstow says, scarcely had the church been organized before Joseph Smith began to provide for common schools for children. At that time, public schools were few on the frontier. In June 1831, a year after the organization of the church, Oliver Cowdery and W. Phelps were appointed a committee to select and write books for the schools. So to say that education is not important to the Lord would be very wrong. We can see here that he wants his children to be thinking and rational and logical creatures. In the section before, it said not to be distressed by every new wind of doctrine. I think that's how it goes. I just woke up here, people, okay? And I think being educated is one way to not be tossed about in the wind. You know, this person over here says this one fact, and you're like, oh, wow, yeah, that sounds bad. And then this person over here says this fact, and oh, yeah, well, I never knew that, and blah, blah, blah. And then you go and you have a conversation with somebody who's educated, and you're like, well, blah, blah, blah said this, and blah, blah, blah said that. And they're like, where are you getting your facts? So, anyways, we can see that in the world today. Alrighty. So that was section 55. And tomorrow is 56. Which is also Saturday. It's fine. It's fine. Alright. I'll talk to you guys later. Love you.